Please welcome to the stage your How to Really Run a City podcast co-hosts, former Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter, former Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed, and the Citizen's Larry Platt, with guest, former Police Commissioner Charles Ramsey.
Playing our theme music. That's our theme. Welcome to this live taping of our How to Really Run a City podcast. If you haven't listened to it, how many have listened to it? All right, a smattering. These guys are great together, Mayors Reed and Nutter. And before we get to our guest, if you are listening to this on audio, you might want to check it out on YouTube, because we're going to post. A few episodes ago, Mayor Reed bragged about his high top fade back in the day. So we thought it appropriate that we need to show both of you guys back in the day. Mayor Nutter, you must have been 6'5".
No, my hair was 2 feet high.
Yeah, can you believe it? I can't. Oh my God.
So
This is what Larry, this is the abuse we take from Larry.
this was my surprise to you guys.
You'll pay for that.
So we have a lot of fun. If you've listened to the podcast, we have a lot of fun. But we also go really deep on the mystery and mastery of big city leadership, because you've heard me say it ad nauseum, right? Like cities are laboratories of experimentation, and they are the place where practical problem solving needs to rule. And these guys are experts at practical problem solving. And we wanted to get with Commissioner Ramsey, because, yeah, let's hear it for Commissioner Ramsey. Police commissioner in Washington, D.C., and then 8 years here in Philadelphia under Mayor Nutter. Where together they oversaw a 60-year low in homicide rates, and he's been co-chair of President Obama's task force on 21st century policing, and is now a principal at 21st Century Policing Consultancy, along with Kathleen O'Toole, who was the head of the Boston Police Department. It's a superstar in her own right. That's like a dream team of when it comes to law enforcement. So Chief Ramsey, welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, and I'm glad you don't have a picture of me when I was younger.
I should have been thinking. I should have thought about that.
Next time.
So let's forget. I want to just let you guys have at it. But I want to begin with the question to you, Chief Ramsey, that right now, murder and crime rates are falling. But you wouldn't know it from the way people feel. And yes, those rates are still higher than pre-pandemic times, but public opinion polls show that people feel there's disorder, they feel unsafe. And I wonder from you, how much of a police chief's job has to engage with reversing public opinion, not just doing the job, but also engaging public opinion?
Well, I think a great deal of it, actually. You know, you have the reality of crime and you have the perception of crime. And you have to be able to deal with both. And so when we look at just crime numbers, for an example, and using Philadelphia as the example, you know, numbers have fallen. But fallen from where? Fallen from an all-time high. And so, you know, people don't feel safe. And when they think about it, it's not just shootings and homicides. It's burglaries, it's theft, it's carjackings, it's, you know, Kensington, the drug use that's very rampant and out and publicly. It's all those things combined that really just give people this sense or a lack of safety and security. And so it's totally understandable. You have to be effective at dealing with both, but the only way to do it is to have a legitimate impact on crime. When people really do start to see things turn around, then you start to impact perception. Just coming with a lot of crime stats is not going to get it.
Yeah, I excuse me, and Larry, thank you, seriously, and good to see all of you. I never tried to convince a citizen who was complaining about an incident on their block or in their neighborhood, the natural instinct is that, well, but, citywide crime is down this and the numbers are that. And I'm like, but if you heard gunshots last night, you don't give a shit about crime stats, right? It wasn't quiet on my block last night, right? So, that's a worthless argument. I think people want to see a response. Is there a presence? Is there a coordinated plan? Can I get in touch with, the district, commander or commanders where I live? Do I ever see an officer, on foot, on bike, in a car, on a horse? Give me something. And I think that is a big part of the job.
And I should have mentioned before we go, Mayor Reed, that under Mayor Nutter, a 60-year low in homicides. Under Mayor Reed in Atlanta, a drop of 40% in violent crime during your tenure there. So we're really talking about we're talking about experts at having a track record on this issue.
Yeah, I was going for Mayberry. So when I talked to my chief, I literally said I'm going for Mayberry. And so we had crime at 40-year lows, and I think what people are feeling right now is we haven't gotten that pre-pandemic focus and intensity back, and people know we haven't. So we're really running to the fire of murder, but that's not the crime that impacts most folks in their regular lives. And when you're doing policing really well, you're really taking an intense approach across the board to prevent the crime from ever happening. We had Centers of Hope, so we were extending the day for young people until 7 o'clock, so we dropped teen crime by 25%. We were doing employment initiatives, so we eliminated banning the box, so we were putting people to work. And the reason that I think that there is still a feeling of unsafety is we haven't gotten back to that full court approach because leaders are dealing with the murder number. And when you're really doing crime prevention well, you're doing across the board and you're going for Mayberry, which unleashes economic investment because people believe they can go to any part of town and open up whatever they want, live wherever they want, and shoot their shot. And right now, we're still in that anti-murder phase, in my opinion.
Commissioner Ramsey, let's hear from you on what are the best practices for intervening in these moments of crisis when it comes to public safety?
I think one of the things that led to what the success we had in Philly under Mayor Nutter was how we organized as a city government. We really took a whole of government approach in dealing with a lot of these issues, because everything, even though police respond to far too many types of things, in my opinion, but many of the things that really lead to that feeling of safety or lack of safety and security, it really isn't about policing. It's abandoned housing, it's abandoned cars, it's drug abuse, it's all those kinds of things, that dirty streets. All those things that kind of make people feel unsafe. And when you really approach crime from a whole of government, in fact, when I look at it, I don't look at it from the standpoint of through the lens of public safety, because when you think of public safety, you think of police, fire, emergency management, medical, things like that. I think about community safety, because there's a lot of things that impact community safety. Now you start thinking about housing, you think about mental health, you think about substance abuse, you think about all those other things that actually combine, give people that sense of just not being in a safe, secure environment. And I think that's the way we have to look at it. And I think that's the way in the future, not only police chiefs, but mayors have to think about it, because right now we're too siloed in many instances. So you've got all these different departments and agency heads, but the communication across all these agencies is not as tight as it ought to be. And the only person that can really bring it together is the mayor.
By the way, was Nutter like a total micromanager to work for?
No. Would be the answer to that question. you know, Commissioner Ramsey.
Y'all
and I-
see how good Commissioner Ramsey is? You see how he said under Mayor Nutter's leadership? I'm sitting there like, yes!
You know, we met in the fall of 2007 for the first time ever, and in Washington D.C. For folks of a certain age, in B. Smith's restaurant in Union Station. I got a call. I don't know if I haven't really talked about this so much publicly. I think Larry may know, and the mayor may know. I got a call from a guy who I met when I used to work at the Impulse Discotheque nightclub.
When you had that fro.
The fro was gone. The fro was gone by then. I'd gone to the shorter, curlier look by then. Not a Jerry curl. In any event,
Man, I am so going to Photoshop a Jerry Carl on him.
young people are Googling, Jerry curl, what does that mean? Anyway, I did not have one. So this guy I knew from the nightclub, who I subsequently found out was actually a Secret Service agent, calls me one day and says, I know you're going to be looking for a new police chief. Commissioner Johnson, under Mayor Street, had already said he was going to finish out his tenure when Mayor Street left. And so he said, you need to check out this guy, Chuck Ramsey. And I said, okay, who is he? And he gave me a little bit of information. And, I apologize, Chief. I just, I was paying attention here. I couldn't keep track of you. So I go to D.C. to meet him. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know that much about him. This is, pre-serious internet age. And we sat and talked for nearly 3 hours. I caught the 10 o'clock last train out of Washington. Now, here's the brilliance of Commissioner Ramsey, though, and Mayor Reed will appreciate this. He walks in, we sit down to dinner, we exchange some pleasantries. He pulls out of his bag my crime plan from the mayor's race. And the pages are all ruffled and all messed up and everything. I mean, either
Probably poured a little coffee on him.
put a couple coffee stains on it, right? But seriously, starts articulating the plan. And so we are getting along here. And I mean, I had subsequent interviews. I interviewed 9 other outsiders and 12 people inside. But it was that level of detail and rapport and paying attention that was critical to us. And so for those 8 years, there was never any light between us. There was never a public issue. He won 98% of the arguments we had, which were all private. But part of it was, I never asked him, do you know how to put handcuffs on? Have you arrested anybody recently? What's your shooting average? What I was looking for was a leader to stand next to me when shit hit the fan, and folks would say, that guy actually knows what he's talking about and knows how to run a police department. And that's why I asked him to come.
And very, very quickly, because I didn't know Mayor Nutter either. And so I did Google search. I did look him up. And he did have a crime plan, and I read it. And I understood where he was coming from, and it fit with a lot of what I personally believed needed to be done. Because what people don't really think about, it's got to be the right fit between the mayor and the police chief. You got to be on the same page. Right. You really do. And not every fit is the right fit. Not every job is for you. And this wasn't my first rodeo. I had been a police chief in D.C. for 9 years. And so I knew what it was going to take to really get things done. And I needed to know that I was working for someone where we could really kind of, put together our thoughts. We could develop a relationship and be a team in getting things done.
Yeah.
And
when it goes down to your officers on the street, they have to know that they have a mayor that if they're really doing their very best, is going to give them a fair shot and a fair shake. Yeah. Otherwise, they do defensive policing. And if your men and women are out doing defensive policing, they're so scared about making a mistake. I'm not saying that you're okay with mistakes. You hold folks accountable. But they've got to believe that you believe in them.
Didn't you say on one of the podcasts that you had a thing on your phone?
Yeah, I had a Blackberry. Every time there was a felony, I had Blackberry felony.
They'll look it
Showing
up.
my age
They'll
once
look.
again.
They'll look it up. Don't worry about it. They'll look it up.
I just saw a young guy. He started looking around.
What? Is there a new phone out?
But I had a Blackberry. I asked my chief, anytime a felony occurred, I wanted to know about it. So it came up in my phone anytime a felony occurred. And it created a real closeness between the chief and I, one, because he knew I knew.
Yeah.
So I would see what happened in the phone the same way he would. So when we would see each other in the morning, he would be working on a truthful and thoughtful response, which creates the kind of intensity that I think people want at home.
Yeah.
When I was mayor, I used to tell people, if your televisions get stolen, I want your TV back. I don't want you to fight. I want your TV back.
Right.
I want you to feel like I want your things back because you feel so violated when you get burglarized and robbed. And you can't do anything about it. It's my job to do anything about it. So I think that we have to have that kind of intensity, and that's what that Blackberry did for me.
Yeah.
Because I would literally tell them, I want that lady's TV back.
Yeah.
And they would look at me and roll my eyes, but God, they would try.
Yeah. Well,
They would try.
The best message you could ever get on a BlackBerry, at least in the public safety realm. So everybody knows, there are basically 3 shifts, 8 to 4, 4 to 12, and then 12 to 8, which is often called last out. And to get up in the morning and that there'd be this one sentence, there were no major incidents overnight. I was like, damn, this is going to be a great day. Oh, my God.
That and Air
like a
Force
song,
One is
man.
up and away. When you host the President of the United States, certainly, I mean, we were there when President Obama was here. And when Air Force One would leave your space. Man. Because
Bye.
the amount, yeah.
Love you. Take care.
I mean, you're closing manholes. You've got 5 or 7 different exit routes. And up until the moment that they tell you Air Force One is clear, and people act like you're so happy that the president is there. No, you're not. Pins and needles,
Love to see you. Love you when you leave.
How does the relationship work? Do you guys, does the mayor and the police commissioner, is that the first conversation in the morning? Do you meet every day? Are you on the phone all day? How does it actually, in practice, work?
It's your biggest hire.
Absolutely.
It's the one that can get you beat. And it's the most important part of your job. Nothing is more important than make sure that you're getting home at night. My job is to make sure that when you walk out of that door to go do whatever you're doing, and when you put that key in the door and you walk in and see your loved one, I did my job. It's number one. And so I think that, my guy had been APD for 30 years, had come up through the ranks, and I did a national search. But what made me pick George Turner was he had been Andrew Young's driver on his security detail. And Andrew Young is one of the greatest civil rights leaders that our nation has produced, former mayor of the city of Atlanta, Dr. King's right hand. And so what I thought when I was making that call was he has all of the other qualities, but what did he see being around Ambassador Young in terms of his humanity? Mm. And that's what made the difference, because I knew that he was going to err on the side of decency, and that was his record.
Yeah. We, there's the scheduled meeting, just, the commissioner and I. Then there was the commissioner and his top people. That's a different meeting. And then there's all the other stuff.
Is that a Comstat meeting, or you don't go to
Comstat? was totally different. Yeah. So every Monday morning, Nola Joyce, who was Commissioner's top deputy, every Monday morning, Nola would send me the previous week's Part 1 and Part 2 crime totals. We had public goals for reductions, and then we had our own internal goals. I'd look through all the stats. I mean, it's math, right? Like, if your goal is X number, then divide by 12, divide by, another 4, And if something was out of whack, first call, I'm looking at the numbers, what's going on, we could talk about it, figure it out. And so to say that there was a regular schedule, there was, but there's everything in between. We talked when we needed to talk. And as Mayor Reed said, that quote-unquote number one hire, it really is your number one duty and responsibility to make sure that your city, wherever you are, is safe, and a lot of that will fall to the chief, to the commissioner, to the superintendent.
You also, from my perspective, I had to develop a sense of, when to call the mayor and give him a heads up on what's taking place. He didn't, not a constant stream of information, because there's always something that's going on, right? But I never wanted him to get caught flat-footed, where some reporter would stick a mic in his face and he wouldn't know what the heck is going on. And so you develop that sense of, he needs to know this now. I remember we had a bad, fatal hit and run. We had 3 small children and a mother that were actually killed, run over by a drunk driver.
Yeah.
Now, he was at an event, it was a black tie event, and I respond to the scene. This is late at night, and once I see it, I get on the phone and I call him, and he's in the middle of a black tie event. I said, Mayor, you need to be here on scene. Okay, this isn't your typical type of case. People need to see you. He showed up in a tuxedo at the scene.
No, I didn't have a nightstick.
Right, and dealt with the media and all that, because people needed to see the head of the city at this particular event, incident that took place. And so it's having that kind of sense of when it's appropriate.
Yeah, but you would also do the alternative, but I'll tell one other story about you. The commissioner not wanting me to be caught off guard. So, from time to time, unfortunately, an officer might get in trouble. And he would call me at like 4 o'clock in the morning and say, Mayor, I need to let you know that the Joint Task Force on whatever is going to arrest so-and-so at 6 o'clock this morning. And I just want you to know that. Okay. And he gave me a few more details. And I said, okay. Anything else? No, sir. All right. I'm going back to sleep now. Because I think Commissioner Ramsey thought that the press was going to be like at the bottom of my driveway at like 6 o'clock in the morning asking for a comment, which never happened, but I was always informed. And by the time I did, get to City Hall and the reporters would be assembled, and I'd say, there's going to be a presser or a briefing or whatever, I'll talk to you then. I'm not doing the hallway thing. But that notice, that thing of always knowing. Now, on the other hand, sometimes stuff would happen, and I would say, all right, well, you having a press conference down at your place, or are we doing it up here? And he would say, Mayor, you don't need to be at this one. This is our business. We need to take care of this, right? And so it's that kind of informative relationship, but it's also a protective one, because the mayor actually shouldn't be at everything.
Well, I was going to say, people associate folks. If it's something really negative that's like internal, I'll take the heat on that. I'll take the weight on that. You don't need to necessarily be standing there next to me when it's something good or more positive. Yeah, but again, that's a discussion we would have to know when it's, because part of my job is protecting him as well.
So two more questions. One is that we still have this epidemic of disorder going on in this city and so many others. What should we be doing that we're not doing? Not necessarily this city, any city. What should we be doubling down on in terms of creating an atmosphere of order on the streets?
Double compassion and get really serious about enforcement. You have to lead with your heart, lead with a big effort around compassion, and by that I mean specific initiatives, because there are reasons that people behave in a certain way. Mm-hmm. But once you've doubled up on compassion, you need to let everybody know that I am not playing, and the foolishness has to stop.
Right.
But you can only do it if you lead with that. You're gonna get hurt. Mm-hmm. So you have to spend deep time and thought and effort in dealing with the reason that crime occurred. Lead on that. Otherwise, you'll get your mayor beat, you'll get your chief beat, and they'll be too weak to take decisive action. But in politics, there is an exchange. And because the community supported Centers of Hope, and because the community allows people to stay until 7 o'clock at night, because the community opened every single recreation center in the city of Atlanta, if you carjack somebody in the city of Atlanta, it is going to be me and you. It is going to be me and you, and I guarantee you it's more me than you.
That's great.
And the public needs to feel this, which is why I think disorder is more prevalent right now, because we got a lot of people in public office who want to be hugged all the time. They don't. They don't want to say stuff that needs to be said. They don't want to deal with behavior that is unacceptable. And they don't want to play that part of being mayor, because it's the hard part of the job where people don't wave at you in a grocery store, right? But that senior citizen is better off if a young person who's going to commit a crime knows that the mayor takes all crime seriously and will release the full capabilities of the force to deal with all sorts of crime. Right now, we got a bunch of people that say, well, that crime wasn't nothing. It's something to the person that got hit in the head.
Yeah.
And I think that energy right now is the dominant energy, except in very rare instances in our major cities.
Yeah.
Well,
Set a tone.
I could talk to you guys about this all the time. In fact, I'd like to invite Chief Ramsey back for one of our podcasts where he could go more in depth, because I had a whole list of other topics, including how you work with unions, which I know you've written about in the past being an impediment, and wanting to reform that relationship. But for now, let me just thank all three of you for your public service, despite your past haircuts.